So the format for this session will be three speakers, and once the three speakers are finished, we'll take some questions from the floor. Our first speaker is John O'Regan. John is the director of the AECOM Ireland Group, based in the Galway office, but his responsibility for the regional offices in Galway, Limerick and Cork. John has over 25 years experience in the construction and property industry, with AECOM and formerly with Davis Langdon, who joined the AECOM Group. John's a chartered quantity surveyor, project and cost manager with extensive experience in private and public sector, and plays a key role in the delivery of many large projects which AECOM are involved in. John's been our most loyal speaker at the conference, been with us since the first conference, right from the start. And as is probably now tradition, John now sets the scene for the rest of the day with a detailed overview of the industry, its present state and future prospects. Thank you. John.
Thank you, Martin, for too many kind words. And I think it's great news, Mary, that that you are seeing the numbers starting to come up again. It really is a great reflection. And it's important for all of us in the industry to know that, because we are hoping to see growth in the time ahead. So we need the flow of people coming into the industry. The slide you see up there is, I hope, something positive in Galway. The new HP European software headquarters that we're involved in out in Ballybrit. I suppose it's a commercial office being built in Galway. It's being developed by MJ Conroy, a West of Ireland developer. It's being funded by Bank of Ireland, an Irish bank. So I think it is kind of what we're starting to see more of that sort of activity, and it's a kind of a positive project. So the theme, as much as there is a theme for my section today, is time to come in from the cold. Is it time for us to start thinking positively and start addressing how things are going to be over the next number of years and start looking forward? And I'm going to touch on a few areas where we go through that. Firstly, to touch on kind of general construction output, the level of output within the industry. To touch on regulation and policy, there has been a lot of change, and there's more change to come in terms of regulation and policy in the Irish construction industry. And I think that is going to change the shape of the industry over the next number of years. So I'm going to touch on that. And then finally, just kind of industry trends, some of the challenges that we're facing in the industry, and also some of the positive things that we have to look forward to. So I'm going to show a slide which probably, Martin, I've shown at nearly every conference here to date. But I think it's important because it kind of sets the context for the industry. What this slide shows is down the left-hand side is Irish construction output in billions, and across the bottom is the timescale from 2006 going forward to 2023. So there is a kind of accepted economic norm that in a mature economy, construction output should be around 12% of gross national product. And that is kind of an average or a norm across Europe, and it should be the kind of level that we are at in a sustainable economy here. And then if you look at this, it just gives an indication of how things have been over the last while and coming to now. So going back to 2006, 2007, at the unsustainably high level of 36 billion, to where we were in 2012, where we kind of touched bottom at 7.5 billion, around half of where the industry should be at. And having been through this up and down and a few other ups and downs along my career, I'm kind of conscious that a lot of people here, students coming in, if they came direct from school and they're in first year now, they would have probably been leaving national school when in 2006, 2007, when we were at the peak. So this is very fresh for a lot of people. People who are in fourth year now, I suppose, would have been doing junior cert when we were at the peak. So this is a big change. So this is kind of a what if. How is the move towards a kind of a mature construction industry going to happen? This is saying, well, look, if we had 10% construction output growth over the next number of years, when would it get to, what would it look like, how long would it take to get us to the point where we had what should be a sustainable level of output. And it takes us through to 2023 from the level we're at now at 10% per annum. What does that mean? That means that space there being filled with increased work to double what we're at. And obviously, along with that, significant increase in employment in the industry on a year-on-year basis. So there's been a lot of forecasting done on the construction industry, and a lot of focus, particularly over the last year or 18 months. The construction industry wasn't perceived well coming out of the late 2000s. It is starting to be perceived more positively, and I think part of that from a governmental point of view started with the Forfus report, which was started in 2012 and was completed in 2013, and there was a presentation I think last year on that report. And that's where the government started to focus on what should we do. The construction industry is an important part of our economy. What should we be doing to make sure that it functions properly? And then the SCSI Construction Sector Outlook Report. Micheál O'Connor will be talking later on this afternoon. He's the current president of the SCSI, and I'm sure he'll be talking about some of the detail of that. And then AECOM published this review that we publish every year. It's a construction industry review. There are a number of copies outside, or you'll be able to pick it up on our website if you like. But just looking at those various reviews of the industry, I suppose the Forfus report was commenced in 2012, but it wasn't published till 2013. So they were forecasting at the time a drop in output in 2013, and then increases in 14 and 15. What the SCSI report shows is an increase in output in 2013 of 4%. And I suppose what's consistent is everybody is now saying that construction output did increase in 2013. Central Bank have published figures, the Central Statistics Office have published figures, and they are all saying that output increased last year, as are we. Then the SCS looking forward to 14 and 15. Everybody's looking to kind of between 4 and 7% for 14, and then I think it's probably too early to say what 15 will start to look like. So I suppose the positive thing is that in general terms, we are looking at growth. It is quite sector focused and it is quite Dublin focused. So whilst we are looking at growth, it probably doesn't feel like that for a lot of people in this room at the moment. So what has been up to 50% of construction output over the last number of years is the public sector capital programme, at around 3.25 billion for this year and holding at that level for 15 and 16. It's lower than it's been in many, many years, but I suppose over the last number of years it's been about 50% of construction output. So it's been very important to the industry, but it's been a tough market to be in. What's starting to show more positive things are some of the stimulus packages which have been initiated over the last couple of years, and we did mention these last year, but they're coming closer to reality now in terms of getting through the design stages and getting towards construction. So some of those packages are the is the PPP program. There were a number of public-private partnership projects that were announced, a mixture of roads and accommodation projects, building projects, and they are coming to the market. They're coming to the market more or less on the program that was originally set for them. I suppose the key one for this region is the N17, N18, which is imminently going, the contracts are imminently going to be signed, we understand, and that is a major project for the region. I think it's going to have a significant impact across everybody in the sector over the next couple of years. It's quite a long project as well. But you see that the peak of the construction output is in 2015 and 2016, where the various projects have got through the planning stages, they've got through the bid stages, and they start on site. So you're looking at there, the dark green is the building projects, and the light green are the roads projects. But you can see that you're looking at that package alone contributing between 400 and 500 million to construction output in 15 and 16. So in the size of market that we're in, that is going to have a significant impact. I'll go back one. I suppose the other area where money is coming out in the property sector is NAMA. NAMA are the biggest property owner or controller in the country, and they have committed to investment. The commitment came quite a while ago, and it's been coming out slowly, but we're certainly seeing it now. A lot of it is focused in Dublin and in the docks in Dublin. NAMA owns so much of the land around the Docklands area that it's very much in their interest for development to go successfully there, because it increases the value of the rest of their stock. So there's a focus there. But there is also a focus, we're seeing it through the Cork, the Limerick and the Galway offices, where they're funding workouts of residential schemes and finishing out some of the projects that are around the place. So they have a commitment to housing as well. They've also made a specific commitment to providing accommodation for foreign direct investment. There is this, the foreign direct investment field has been continuing to grow, and one of the challenges is that surprisingly, the right sort of accommodation for them isn't there. So the NAMA have committed to funding some of that sort of accommodation. So yeah, this is just to kind of emphasise the focus that NAMA inevitably have on the Docklands area in Dublin, around Grand Canal, Point Village, Spencer Dock. They own so much of the vacant sites there, or they have them under their control. It's very much in their interest to see that whole area growing, as it is with Google and all the others going in there. And that's a fair bit of their focus going on at the moment. So I mentioned the workouts, some of the workout schemes, some of these being glamorous, like the Marca Hotel in Grand Canal, more of them being residential developments that have sat there either incomplete or gradually deteriorating over the last 4 or 5 years. But there is a fair bit of that going on through NAMA, through receivers and so on. Certainly in Dublin, the commercial office sector has become very active. There are big companies looking for commercial office space. They're looking for bigger floor plates. There's a lot of existing stock that has been sold and is now being fitted out. So there is a lot of activity in that sector, particularly in Dublin. And this, I think, the level of acquisition over the last year or 18 months, I think maybe is the single most important thing in the private sector, in the commercial sector. All the properties you see there were distressed assets, if you like, where the loans way exceeded the value of the properties. They've now been sold, so they're now purchased and valued at realistic levels, and the people that now own them have money and have the opportunity to invest. So all those ones are Dublin ones, but I think that's also very relevant here in Galway. When you think some of the properties that have changed hands over the last while, Ashford Castle, which we hopefully will hear more about later from Paul, Corrigate Southern, right beside us here, Corrigate Southern, Dawn Dairies, Connaught Hotel, the Odeon Centre down, the Odeon group of properties down on Eyre Square. There's been a lot of acquisition gone on in Galway and in the region as well. And whilst that doesn't necessarily translate into a whole heap of construction activity now, at least there's a possibility that those properties will be developed over the next while. So I think that is a very significant item. So this is the bridge over the Shannon in Athlone, and I think I put this up just to emphasise that, or to acknowledge that a lot of the previous slides with all the positive stuff about growth is very Dublin focused. We haven't seen it yet so much on this side of the Shannon, and I won't stray into Paul's brief, who's talking about the Western region. So that's looking at the construction output. The next section that I want to talk about is the kind of level of regulation and policy changes that have happened and are likely to happen over the next while. So certainly after the financial crisis and the big role that property had in that in Ireland, there has been a perception of the property industry, the construction industry, and everybody associated with it, unfortunately, being reckless and contributing towards that crash. And I think to a large degree, that's unfair. If you look at some of the things that have been achieved, I just picked some of the great projects that came out of that period. There have been huge achievements delivered by that industry and things that are very positive. But the reality is that there are, and these are the ones that hit the news, is that there's also some strong negatives that came out of that era. And just to illustrate those, kind of houses on floodplains, the whole pyrite issue and the difficult position that leaves a lot of people in. And probably the most famous of them all, on the bottom left there, that's Priory Hall. So that is kind of the context for regulation and policy from a governmental perspective. And there's already, I just kind of ran through some of the things that have already happened over the last while. And in fairness, they were in train going back kind of 10 or 15 years. Changes in planning regulations, making them more kind of centrally controlled and less open to local involvement. Health and safety regulations, the whole preliminary health and safety plans and so on. Increases in building regulations, particularly U values and building energy ratings being on every property. And then the registration of professionals, registered surveyors, building surveyors, quantity surveyors, registered architects and chartered engineers. Those are all things that have happened to improve and regulate the industry. I find it hard to be negative about any of those. I think they're all very important and they're all they're improvements to the industry. I think what has been difficult is that a lot of those changes have happened while the industry has been in a fairly dysfunctional period. So it's been very difficult to people to deal with these levels of change in a period where their businesses are struggling for survival as well. And in terms of procedures, in terms of government procedures, the introduction of the Capital Works Management Framework, new procurement regulations, which unfortunately have resulted in a lot of cases a race for the bottom in terms of cost and service, and the government contracts, which have been quite adversarial. Those procedures have come in at a difficult time for the industry, and they're being visited again. And then moving on to the more recent changes, the Building Control Amendment regulations, where there is now a lot more emphasis on building control, and this comes out of Priory Hall and similar problems. Obviously, I think everybody would agree that there are issues that had to be addressed, and building regulation control had to be improved. It's come in very quickly without real preparation, so time will tell how it pans out. And then moving on to the next level of regulation, the Construction Contracts Bill brought in by Fergal Quinn and Sean Gallo, or driven by them. Again, trying to protect subcontractors in the environment that we're in, to ensure prompt payment for them and allowing a mechanism for resolving disputes. Not completely simple, not as straightforward as one would think. I think it is going to throw up challenges if main contractors have to pay subcontractors within specific periods of time. There's no guarantee that the main contractors will get paid in those periods. So there are potentially issues there. Then the last one, which we'll probably hear more about later, the Construction Industry Register, where all main contractors are currently looking at this voluntary register, which view it that it will become compulsory. So again, that'll regulate contractors in terms of tax compliance, health and safety, and qualifications, and so on. So again, all positive things. I think if we're going into a period of growth and we want this industry to be a strong and a safe industry, those are the sorts of things that we should be looking forward to. Then in terms of the government contracts, they are being reviewed. Procurement has already changed. There's new green procurement proposals coming in. So there's more change coming. And then just in terms of government initiatives, we have kind of come through the period, I think, where government are afraid to even talk about the construction industry. And they are looking at now at these small stimuluses in terms of living cities benefits and capital gains tax relief and so on. And I think we probably will see more of that, and that's obviously positive. So that's kind of a sense of some of the things that are happening from a kind of a regulation and a policy point of view. I think one of the things that just underlies is that we are in a period of constant change at the moment, and we just need to move with that. So just some of the things that occupy our thoughts and our minds while we're in day-to-day business. I suppose the coming into this period where we will see some growth, we'll particularly see some big projects coming to the market, some of the PPP projects. You'll see I have a slide on contractors next, but you'll see that contractor capacity is becoming a question in terms of whether how quickly people will be able to gear up to take on these projects. I don't think that will be a significant issue, but I think we need to think about it. As I say, the public sector has been a very important area for people over the last while, but it's been tough going. It's been a very adverse area and a very competitive market. And while other work is becoming available, when new private work is becoming available, there is a concern that people will turn away from the public work, which will be an issue for people trying to deliver public sector work. Mechanical electrical services pricing, we've already seen that. They have more opportunities in the pharma and the food sector and in the maintenance sector, and it's become increasingly difficult forecasting M&E pricing. We still do see a degree of tendering, the abnormally low tendering and difficult tendering environment. The graduate and apprentice levels, I don't believe it's an issue now, but it is quite shortly going to become an issue, I think. And I think that's obviously very positive for the students that are here, that it will become, we do need to make sure that that pipeline is there. I touched on public procurement contract procedures. It is, I think, critical that the government shows a positive view towards the construction industry over the next while. It's a very important part of the economy, and they do need to show a bit more kind of confidence and leadership in it. Then I think the other area that people are conscious of is the shadow economy, the black economy, if you like, and how that has grown over the last while, and how that will be addressed as we're going forward through the construction industry regulation and so on, registration. Sorry. So this is a slide. I hesitated whether to put it in this time, but I have, because I think it relates to this issue of capacity and how the industry is going to address the upturn as it comes, we hope. This is the top 10 contractors and their turnover in 2007. Then you do that, and you have the ones that are left. So there's obviously a massive fall away. It's just a very graphic way of demonstrating the level of change that's happened in the industry over the last while. So will the Irish construction industry be able to deliver as we move towards this new level, or we hope to move towards this new level? The horizontal line here is the kind of the level of where we see optimum construction output being. I think the positive thing about this graph is when you look between 2000 and say 2004, there was huge growth there, and the industry could address it. The industry did have the capacity to address it. So I don't have a huge fear as things start to pick up, but it is obviously a concern in the industry. And I think, how will the industry try and address the increase in capacity? Well, there are some very, very experienced and good people working in the construction industry in Ireland at the moment, working on smaller projects, who would be well capable of running projects far greater and far in excess of the size they're at. So I think the management and senior staff exist to take on the larger projects and just step up from the smaller projects they're on to the larger ones. There's obviously an awful lot of people who've left the country over the last while. Many of them would be keen to come back. But I think there is a point in this that that they'll only come back in the right environment. I think it is a tough industry to work in Ireland. People who've been away have been working on exciting projects. They've probably got good money. They've probably got good working conditions. And they're going to be reluctant to come back to uncertainty and an adverse aerial environment and poor working conditions. So I think those things have to come with it if the people are going to come back. But obviously people who've left the industry will come back, and there has been a kind of a shift in focus from a lot of Irish contractors and consultants to international work. That focus might come back when the margins come back in Ireland, so people will be able to focus more on the home market again. And there's a few other thoughts there. So what are the challenges to increasing that capacity? Well, cash flow and liquidity is certainly a challenge. If contractors want to grow, they have to be able to, and consultants want to grow, they have to be able to fund that growth. The salaries go out first and the money comes in after. So you do have to be in a positive cash flow position to be able to grow. The future skills shortage we mentioned. And there is a lot of pent-up cost increases, both in labour and materials, plant, in every aspect. And it could generate significant cost increases in construction. And I think then affordability becomes potentially an issue. So just to the last couple of slides now to summarise some of the positives and negatives that are out there. Output is starting to increase, so that's obviously a positive. Large projects are still taking a very long time to get through the various processes. We'll hear about Galway Harbour later on, and everybody involved in the harbour has been extremely persistent in moving that project forward. But these projects do take a long time. The government stimulus plan is in place, which is positive, but there does need to be more of that to keep the engagement of the market. NARM are obviously releasing money. The public sector capital programme hitting rock bottom in 2014 and staying at that level is not positive. We really do need to address the infrastructure deficit. Some of the hangovers of the really tough times, below cost tendering, disputes still there, have become a bit of a culture in some places. Procurement issues still to be resolved, public contracts still to be resolved, the issues of the shadow economy. But the Government Commission Forfeits report and the re-engagement with the industry that's followed on from that is definitely a big positive. So go back to the theme, time to come in from the cold. The reasons to be positive, there are very clear reasons to be positive. Construction output has started going up again. Employment numbers have started going up again. Foreign direct investment is very strong. Stimulus packages are there, which are good, but we need the next one, please. Investment appetite is there, the acquisitions, real estate investment trusts are also bringing money into the country. There is certainly pent-up demand from a residential point of view and a commercial point of view in certain locations and sectors. So there's a lot of positives there, but we're not there yet. It's still a very tough environment, and it is still, I think, very much two-tier growth at the moment, in that it's very Dublin focused and it's very sector focused. So I'm spending a lot of time on the train up and down to Dublin, and there's a lot of people who are doing the same, but we do want to see that come more as growth across the country. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Martin.